Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Please like and subscribe. Cheers. Now, on to today's story. I cut a cheating friend out of my life. Maybe this will help someone know there are good friends out there. Advice. I posted a short comment about this earlier, and not sure if this subreddit is the right spot for this. I hope my tale will help some people. I knew a guy, let's call him James, since the first day of first grade. We were friends for the majority of our time in school. James is extremely intelligent, and most people don't assume much of him. He's very thin, lanky and reminiscent of Sheldon Cooper. James had a young brother, a little over a year younger than him, who I'll call Mike. James and Mike weren't exactly close to each other growing up, but they were friendly enough. In high school, James started dating a girl who I'll call Minnie. He continued to date Minnie for a while. After high school, James elected to not go to college, but he did get a job at a major bank, and rose to the ranks to an executive position. James seemed to have his shit together. James eventually married Minnie about 12 years ago, and I attended their wedding. I was not the best man or even a groomsman, but I knew them both for a while, so I was happy to attend. James eventually got a house and a 10-year mortgage with Minnie, and they both seemed happy. James opened his house up to his friends and family. He let Minnie's brother and brother's girlfriend and child stay in a spare room for a while. He let his brother Mike stay for a few years too. Near the end, they had a Russian woman staying with them in the spare bedroom, a woman whom I assumed was Minnie's friend. What was strange was there was a couple, husband and wife, who were friends with James and Minnie for a few years, but they vanished after 2 to 3 years of the marriage. James put out an outwardly religious and righteous face. He quoted scripture. He said that he figured out the Bible, and he was very convincing to talk to. Finally, over 2 years ago, before Thanksgiving, James told me something. He said he had a dark passenger. He said he was going to do a method to rid himself of this, and for the first week after he will be different. I want to make it clear, this I did not believe. But I had the thought process of if it's real for him, and helps him, who am I to judge? Anyways, on Thanksgiving, I was trying to call James and he wouldn't answer. Scared, I drove over to his house to find him sitting in the dark, alone, crying. He told me that Minnie has left him, and cut contact with him totally. I found this strange, because Minnie never seemed like someone who would abandon him. There had to be a reason, so I asked him what he did. I told him that I could help him figure out how to straighten out his life, but I had to know exactly what he did. I never said I would help him contact Minnie or force my advice on Minnie. I even said I wouldn't contact Minnie for him. But, as someone I knew for close to 2 decades, I had to know what he did. What James would admit to was having heated discussions with Minnie and shoving her, open-handed shoving and pushing. I detest violence with a spouse, and told him that. I said he needed to go to therapy, sort himself out, but I could help him with that. But, I also continued to be his friend, because I assumed this was the worst of it. I hung out with him, played online games with him, watched movies, TV shows, etc. In fact, one time he stopped by my place to watch the Orville. This tells you how long ago this was. His car got towed. I drove him to the tow yard at midnight and paid the $300 fine to get his car out, which I never saw again. The towing incident plays into the fact that after his wife vacated the house, James too vacated the house and elected to live in the back of his SUV. He did this to show his wife that he was serious, and was willing to suffer to prove how serious he was. I thought this was stupid, but he was serious. He let the Russian chick stay in the marital home, however, which I thought was strange. 4 months passed of this strange deadlock until finally, James sent out a strange and lengthy email to the Bible group we were both a part of, which confessed his sins, claimed they weren't his fault, dark passenger, and begging for the Bible group to do an intervention and get him and his wife back together. I told him this was a bad idea. He did it anyway. He did large gestures like this thinking it would draw his wife back. She of course refused. It wasn't until a week after the email that his wife contacted him, and James offered to do marriage counseling. The first visit, the counselor told Minnie, run as far as you can. They didn't go together for a second, but James went by himself many times after. Finally, at the 5th month, James agreed to give Minnie the divorce. James framed it as them starting back at square one to rebuild, but I knew that wasn't it. James and Minnie agreed to go back to the marital home to sell the things in there to split assets. I agreed to come help them pack stuff up. I showed up, and this was the first time I saw Minnie in months. She greeted me, was warm and kind. I finally talked to just her when James went to get something at the store. I told Minnie that I think James is making an effort to change. I did not, however, tell her to stick with him, or try to pressure her, or try to mediate. This was mostly because she seemed concerned about his mental well-being, since this was the first time, aside from the therapy session, she saw him in months. I wanted her to know that I think he was going to be okay. I told her that he confessed to me about his violence, and then she said, oh, it wasn't the violence that bothered me, it was the infidelity. I was shocked. I was told nothing of this. Minnie told me about how James cheated on her shortly before their wedding with a coworker. Then, 2 years into their marriage with his brother Mike's GF. His brother Mike hasn't spoken to him since, and I was always confused as to why before this conversation. Another office affair about 2 years prior to this point, one which had Minnie forced James to change jobs, which explains why James went from being an executive level with one finance company to mid-level with another same pay grade too. The final affair partner was, yes, the Russian chick staying in their house. James having the Russian chick stay, alone, in the marital home after both partners vacated must have been the ultimate insult to Minnie. I knew Minnie since high school, and she wasn't a vindictive person. She had no reason to lie about that. But, what I heard, a lot of pieces fell into place. James's brother cut him off. The former couple's friend breaking off contact suddenly. James's career changes. No, it was real. And, I had to get out of there. I left. A week later, I called James and told him his wife told me. I told him that my condition for helping him was knowing. And he broke that. He tried to tell me it wasn't cheating because, and this was strange, some strange rule in the Bible about the other woman's father not being present. He said the Russian chick didn't count because it was only oral in the car. I couldn't deal with this. James was an oath breaker. Someone who was willing to screw over his own brother for moments of pleasure. I wasn't blood to James, what chance did I have that he wouldn't screw me over? I told James the first was cutting contact with him. That I hoped he got the help he needed, but this was not the right way to act. James actually stopped by my apartment that night and pleaded on my apartment doorstep to give him a chance. I felt like he was treating me like the betrayed spouse. I told him in no uncertain terms that I cannot and would not associate with an adulterer. I reiterated, he needed to go get himself some help, sort out his life, and become better, but I cannot support him, or be his friend. He left, in a huff. The next morning, when I went and opened my door, I found 2 gifts I gave him on my doorstep. As if he was breaking up with me. Strange, and weird. I had lunch with Minnie about a month later, with a mutual friend, so James could not accuse me of trying to make a move on Minnie. Minnie was doing better, and I wish her well. I always consider infidelity a deal breaker with friends. And I posted about this on Reddit when it happened, and several Redditors admonished me for abandoning James and that I should not let how he treated Minnie color my friendship with him. I'm sorry, I won't hang out with an adulterer simply because we enjoy the same TV shows and video games. That, to me, seems sick. My mother even said I should forgive James for this, even though I laid out to her the very real reasons I had no reason to trust him, and he displayed he didn't have the moral character I wished to have in friends. My sister, thankfully, understands. Not sure why I am posting this years later. Maybe I want to just say that there are guys like me out there. That I hope there are people with strong enough codes of honor that we cut out the sickness in our lives versus letting it fester and infect our friend groups. Maybe you have a friend group that doesn't want to take sides. Share this with them. Maybe your friends riding the fence will find their balls after reading this. I just hope this helps someone, because I had to ride the last 2 years alone with people telling me to be indifferent to cheaters in my life. James is far more than an adulterer. Beat his wife. Lives in his car as some sort of solidarity. James is a psychopath. I'd be fearful of my life around James. He has a completely broken moral compass. Yeah, as much as I'd love for this to be a tall tale, no, James, not his real name, is a real person. He's apparently a very good charmer, even though he doesn't look it. He's out there, and when I knew the extent of his true personality, his manipulation, I cut him out of my life all at once. I want to think the infidelity was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, simply because I didn't have much tolerance for that anyways in my personal life. Good for you, man, I totally respect you for it. It must be hard to cut a bro out of your life like that, but it shows you got character and good values, so kudos to you. I almost had to cut my best friend out of my life once because of him wanting to cheat on his girlfriend. Thing is, he got divorced because his wife cheated and now he was trying to do the same. I was disgusted and told him so. We've been best friends since kindergarten, and this happened at our high school reunion a few years back when we were 50 years old. His girlfriend couldn't be there that night, so he ended up getting pretty drunk, like many others, haha. I could see that he kept dancing, flirting, even getting handsy with this girl we knew was single at the time and an old friend back in the day. During the evening we met at the bar and I asked him what the hell was he doing, because it was quite obvious what he was trying to do. He just answered, well, I'm trying to take her home and F her. I duck and flipped. I just grabbed him aside and flat out told him if he did, I would never speak to him again and that his girl would know about it the next day. Plus, why was he divorced in the first place? Well, I can tell you he was pissed at me, but I didn't care at all what he felt about me. I just wanted him to realize what damage it was going to cause if he did go through with it. Happy to say that he didn't and came back later on to apologize to me and said that I was right, and thanked me for looking out for him and his girlfriend. We had a long talk the next day and everything is cool between us. James was much more than a cheater, or the therapists wouldn't have told the woman to run as fast as she could away from him. Good for you for breaking ties. I think you is the right thing here. Your friend sounds like he has some serious mental issues. The fact that he tries to justify this behavior, and claim that cheating didn't count, is also bizarre to me. I could not be friends with someone like this either. When someone cheats, it's a reflection of their character. I do believe people can change, but not those who do it multiple times and do not take accountability. I'm glad Minnie got out of there. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.